Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. I'm your host, Joe Hamilton, alongside Theo. Theo, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. It's Tuesday so far, and just loving life and enjoying every day, and just hoping that this snow will finally melt sooner than later. It's supposed to get pretty warm here in the next couple days.
We actually had some snow earlier today in St. Louis, which that's odd to say the least. But it didn't last long, and while it was heavy, it didn't stick to anything other than grassy surfaces. So the ground was pretty warm. Next Tuesday at this time, Theo, it'll be 80 degrees. So
I don't think so, but okay.
No, that's the forecast for next week.
Well, just thankfully, a meteorologist isn't performing open heart surgery because 60% of the time they're wrong. It's like Sex Panther. 60% of the time it works all the time. So
you got an excellent point there. Well, let's start with Major League Baseball because the St. Louis Cardinals just botched an absolute gem from Adam Wainwright. Adam Wainwright goes 7 innings, striking out 10, and the Nationals take out Patrick Corbin. Patrick Corbin had an equally as good start. They took him out in the 6th inning, Washington did, and the Cardinals took advantage of it only for 2 runs. The thing is, they bring in a guy in the 8th inning who clearly doesn't have his control in Giovanni Gallegos when they could bring in their closer. I'm not saying for the whole inning. I get it. 2 inning saves for a closer, that's always bad news. I mean, not always, but more times than not, it's bad news. So, bases loaded, Yan Gomes up. Instead of bringing in Gallegos or bringing in Reyes then, he sticks with Gallegos, and Gallegos walks the eventual winning run to the plate. Why does this tick me off? Because this is the first time you've had a St. Louis starter go more than 6 innings. And granted, I get you're probably going to give me the excuse, well, you know what? It's early in the season. Some of these guys aren't, stretched out enough. Well, Wainwright, while he didn't look good in the 1st inning in terms of his mechanics, he certainly looked good the other 6 he pitched. Again, striking out 10. They deserved to win. The fact was they didn't get it done, and they're facing Max Scherzer tomorrow. So I'm not in the best of moods, Theo, that's for sure. But you got to move on from it. You got a tough test tomorrow in Scherzer. You need to be thinking about that. So other than that, you got to shake it off. You got to get ready for tomorrow. Now, Theo, let's talk about the American League East real quick. I'll go through the scoreboard a little bit later. Your Toronto Blue Jays, is this the start you thought they'd get off to?
It's a start that you expect from a team that's got a tremendous amount of injuries. I mean, Springer has yet to play a solid set of games yet. Gurriel Jr. does not have the home runs. He doesn't even have a home run yet this year. Starting to see the little 3, I call Bichette, Biggio, and Vlad Jr. starting to heat up. I mean, Vlad's, second in the league or second on the team with home runs, or first on the team with home runs, tied with Bichette at 5, leading the team in ERA batting average in 368. We're starting to see him heat up. Bichette and Biggio are going to follow suit. The thing is, we have Gurriel Jr., we have Springer who's not played, Hernandez and Alejandro behind in the back catching position. He's finally got his first home run of the season. We're not seeing the consistency in the batting averages, just like everywhere else. I mean, case in point, you look at the New York Yankees too. Like, they're batting below 200 as a team. Only 3 hitters for the Blue Jays are sub or above 279. So, I mean, is it a case where we're seeing pitching out of the AL East prove dominant? Or are we just not seeing the bats awake yet? I mean, maybe we have to wake up bats. Maybe we have to get Pedro Serrano from the Major League movies to wake up bats. I don't know. But the bottom line is it's a different dynamic of a game to an early season that we're seeing, considering that was only a 60-game season last year. So, I mean, the Dodgers are heating up. Now we're getting out of the AL, but I mean, we're starting to see trends of teams doing what's expected. Yeah, I mean, at a 7-10 record right now for Toronto, I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying it's bad, but I mean, considering what's happened on the bullpen, what's happened off the mound, and during the bats, it's expected. I mean, we're not, you're not going to win the AL East in the first 17 games of the season.
But you're certainly going to lose it.
You're going to lose a couple. You're going to find your groove. You're going to figure out what's working. And for players, it's a bit of a stretch considering two things. One, a shortened 60-game season and a different type of off season. And let's be honest. I mean, the Toronto Blue Jays are the only team that's not playing on their home ballpark, the confines of, Rogers Center. So is it a little bit different? Yeah. Do they enjoy playing in Florida? Probably more so considering the weather, but the Rogers is a inside dome. So it's a completely different surface, completely different facility. And I think it's just the fact that they're getting used to their environments and the constructs to this season and how it's begun. We won't know until the end of May whether or not there might even be the slimmest of chances for the Blue Jays to even play a home game this year. Methinks not. It's not going to happen. Too many constrictions, too many protocols, too many, everything's going up here in Canada, where now the borders of Ontario are closed yet again. So to expect them to open up for a baseball team, I highly doubt it.
Yeah, and it's sad to think about because you want to see the Blue Jays get back to Toronto. You want to see what George Springer, how he'd be loved in Toronto. That would be interesting in itself. But, getting off the Toronto Blue Jays because, you talk about the pitching of the AL East. The Yankees certainly have it, but at the same time, they're not hitting. They're not hitting at all. I think going into today, they were like 5-10. This is the worst start for the New York Yankees since 1997, and that was in the midst of their dynasty in the 90s.
Well, you have to remember the two worst seasons the Yankees have had in the last 25 years, going back to 97. You mentioned 97 being 5 or 6 and 10 start or something?
5-10.
5-10. They ended up with 96 wins that year. It's not how you start, it's how you finish, number one. Number two, I think the second worst season they had in the last 25 years, they ended up with over 100 wins in the season. So, I mean, Brian Cashman comes out and makes his little spiel about we're not going to worry just yet, it's early, this and that and the other. He's probably right. I mean, the good thing is his players are mostly healthy. I mean, we haven't seen the judge and the executioner and the jury go down yet on the injured list. So it's nice to see that in the beginning of the season. Whether or not that happens in July remains to be seen. But, I mean, playing in New York, it's a little bit chillier. Ball doesn't fly as far. Whatever excuses you want to make is fine. Just, I will say the Tampa Bay Kryptonites certainly have the number of the New York Superman Yankees. So it has worked out for Tampa's advantage and their small roster, their small paid roster over the absolute juggernaut, second most expensive roster in the Yankee world.
Yeah, it's crazy because, you not only have Aaron Judge, you have the former NL MVP in Giancarlo Stanton, and he's hitting under 200. It's not really worked in New York. I mean, I, for one, wanted him in St. Louis, but now I'm kind of glad that we didn't go out and get an overgrown, and I sound like a Yankee fan here for a second, so don't, but overgrown, injury-prone animal that Stanton's turned out to be. I mean, yes, the power is, the power potential there is limitless of what he can do in any ballpark. But I think the bad outweigh the good in the situation in terms of him being injured. I talk about the body styles of these two guys. They're football body styles. Am I wrong on that?
I mean, they're both well over 6 feet. They're both well over 2 bills. They almost look like tight ends versus baseball players. I mean, if you really think about it, they are not the same shape as Fernando Tatis Jr. They are not. I mean, you look at. Bryce Harper looks like a peanut compared to these two almonds. I mean, these boys are big. They're large in charge. They go through doorways by themselves. They don't go sideways. People move out of their way. Mike Trout is the only one. I mean, Mike Trout's a little bit young, a little bit smaller in height, but I mean, Trout is the prototypical baseball player right now. He is today's Mickey Mantle. He is today's Joe DiMaggio. He is today's quintessential Triple Crown, including defensive-minded player in Major League Baseball. Show me another player that matches up in his size, his skill, his ability, and his love of the game, and I will not find an equal.
Yeah, you won't. And I would think the Yankees would turn it around, but a team that's really surprised me for staying in this division real quick is the Boston Red Sox. Is this something that can be sustainable for them?
You know, that's a really good question, Joe, and the answer is I don't know because, you know, they got rid of some pretty big pieces. Pedroia's not there anymore. Mookie's not there anymore. Their pitching is not, you know, the big names that it once was. We're seeing Cleveland. We're seeing Tampa. We're seeing New York, obviously, with the bigger pitchers and the better pitchers right now, performances. Boston and New York have always had that battle. It's always been the battle there. But it seems like they've taken a back seat, and they're okay with taking the back seat now because they're seeing how the bright lights and the boo birds have come out in New York, and Boston's quietly climbing the ranks, and they're doing something that I didn't expect to see either. I mean, I'd expected to see, you know, New York and Toronto really battling at the top of this division, and they're battling for the bottom of the division instead.
Yeah, it's nuts to even think about, but just cruiser on the MLB scoreboard here. You have the Los Angeles Dodgers taking down the Seattle Mariners 1-0. Julio Urias got the win in that one. He's 3-0. Marco Gonzalez got the loss, and it's a hard loss when you only give up one run. That's another surprise this year. I mean, yes, it's early, but the Seattle Mariners have been playing good baseball. So again, we'll see if it's sustainable. They have a lot of young talent. You have a battle within the AL Central. The Chicago White Sox have defeated the Cleveland Indians by a final score of 8-5. The Oakland Athletics take down the Minnesota Twins 7-0. And this is a team quietly getting hot, the Oakland Athletics.
Yeah, but so are my Braves. So our bet's still on.
Hey, speaking of which, the New York Yankees take down the Atlanta Braves 3-1. That's in the Bronx. So, yeah, they may have taken a hit with that loss to the Yankees, though. I mean, I will continue to bring that bet up every time we do a show because you know what?
We got a lot of games to cover, Joe. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we do. So the Baltimore Orioles take down the Miami Marlins by a score of 7-5. The Nationals take down the Cardinals 3-2. You have the Boston Red Sox beating the Toronto Blue Jays 4-2, like you said earlier. And the games going on right now, you have the San Francisco Giants beating the Philadelphia Phillies 10-6. The Chicago Cubs beating the New York Mets 3-1. You have the Tampa Bay Rays beating the Kansas City Royals 7-5. And that game's in the 5th. The Cubs game is in the 6th. And the Phillies game is in the 9th. I didn't mention that, so I got to cover my bounds here. The Houston Astros and Colorado Rockies are scoreless. That game's in the bottom of the 5th. Scoreless in Los Angeles for your Angels against the Texas Rangers. That game's in the 2nd. Minnesota and Oakland actually played a doubleheader. That second game is in the 3rd inning. Bottom 3, no score in that game. And the upcoming game tonight, this is going to be fun to watch. The Milwaukee Brewers and San Diego Padres. On the mound for the Brewers in this one, it's Corbin Burns. On the mound for San Diego, it's Chris Paddock. So your Angels, what are your thoughts on the Angels? Are they, since we last talked, have they gone down in your opinion or stayed right where they are?
I think they've pretty much stayed right where they are. I mean, they are, they're still defining themselves. on the mound. I think that's the big key for them, is to get, like your Cardinals, to get some consistency and to see what this group of pitchers is going to be able to do night in, night out. I'm not a little concerned with the middle of the bullpen, but again, it's that consistency that has to start proving itself. We need to see 3 or 4 pitchers that are the go-tos in the middle innings. I'm still I'm not confused, but I'm not worried to see how many pitches are being thrown. I know it's still fairly early in the season, but I would like to see these starters get a little more lengthier, more six inning starts.
Yeah, you'd like to see more. You'd like to see more 6-7 inning starts. Try to get your bullpen to where it needs to be, to where it's not, burnt out by the All-Star break, or maybe even by June. So when we come back, Theo, we're going to be talking some NHL. It's getting down to, no pun intended, crunch time. So some of these teams need to be playing well down the stretch. Some teams trending in the right direction, some teams in the wrong direction. We'll talk about that right after this here on Crunch Time.
Hi, I'm JD Houghton, host of the Stats Sports Show. Catch it every Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time for all things Saskatchewan sports.
Check out JD and every show here on ASTV. They're all good shows, including On the Ice with Theo, which was actually live today. I'm glad to see that. I like to see more live content.
Yeah, we're doing the live thing just because it's working better in the schedule, but also it's more pertinent action to, actual breaking news. I mean, Wayne Cozier, who's my guest every Tuesday, is really good at keeping me up to date with not only what's happening in the bubbles at the Western Hockey League, but also this is the time where a lot of student athletes are thinking which avenue to play their next level of hockey, whether they stay in the junior ranks or they want to go south of the border, play in the NCAA, the USHL, and what those ramifications of those decisions are. Pretty informative stuff. Catch us Tuesdays at 6 o'clock. Because if you're one of those parents or one of those athletes that's thinking, what are my options? Wayne is a really great resource to get in contact with. And you can get that contact through ASTV, or you can find him, I'm sure, on all of our social media pages as well. So do have a listen. Do check it out. Thanks for the plug.
Hey, no problem. I would have played your On the Ice promo, but yeah, I was cautioned against that.
Yeah, it's just
by you. So I get it. So let's dive into the world of the NHL. And usually we talk about the North when you're on, but let's talk about the East, man. That playoff race is starting to heat up.
It's a big deal. I mean, you look at what Washington has done over the last little bit. I mean, we made comment last week at the deadline of how important it was to pick up a player like Anthony Mantha and getting rid of Vrana and a couple of draft picks and one other player. Washington hasn't lost a step. I mean, they had a bit of a weekend matchup with the Bruins, which was probably the most exciting game on the weekend if you checked it out on the Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon, early afternoon. I mean, the Boston Bruins came out 2-0. Then the Capitals come back, take a 3-2 lead, and then Boston resurges with the Pasta line. And it seems like the Pasta line is the only line that's scoring for Boston outside of Taylor Hall. Speaking of which, Taylor Hall has matched his goal output in 3 games with Boston with the 37 he played in Buffalo. So if you think someone's not happy to be in New Jersey, go call Taylor Hall's agent, go call the Taylor Hall hotline, and find out what he's doing differently in 3 games in Boston that he couldn't do in 37 in Buffalo. At the same time, we look at the New York Rangers. The New York Rangers are sitting, I think, 7 points out right now of a playoff spot, but they're starting to get going too. I mean, Panarin's starting to heat up. Zibanejad is there. Stukin got a shutout, I think, last week. He's starting to play a little better between the pipes. The question is the defense. I mean, Jacob Trouba's still not there. But the rest of that crew, they're starting to play better hockey in Rangerland. And, I mean, the Islanders are coming out pretty right now with their 2 pickups at the deadline to fill up for Anders Lee. They are playing great, gritty hockey. I like how they're built. They are almost a playoff prototypical built team, doing really well. I like what they've done. I think they're going to surge farther and farther. Carolina Hurricanes are the surprise. I mean, you look at Carolina, Washington, Boston, the Islanders. There's not much wiggle room in those 4. I mean, those are the top 4 teams for a reason. They're playing really great hockey. I'm not surprised. I'm surprised to see the order, the pecking order, but not those 4 teams. Those 4 teams really showed great promise at the beginning of the year, and I think they're very well built, all 4 of them, for playoff runs.
They are built for playoff runs. And, you talk about Taylor Hall and Buffalo. How many players like to play in Buffalo? Can you explain? Can you answer that for me?
Right now?
I mean, how many in general? In general.
Well, I mean, if you go back
not ever, because there was a time where they were good.
We had the French Connection in the late 70s. You had Phil Housley in the 90s.
Of course.
You had Dave Andrechuk, who began his career. Great player for the Leafs, for the Lightning, for the Stars. I mean, he was a great Buffalo Sabre. Best of all, Patty LaFontaine. I mean, he was a great Buffalo Sabre as well, and a great Islander. More of an Islander, because I think he started in New York. So, but he went to Buffalo. He was a fairly good player.
What I meant by that, Theo, and I hate to jump on you,
but
over the last 10 years, who wants to play for that team? I'm talking about the lean years in Buffalo, like it has been.
That's the thing. The identity of Buffalo has been missing for that long.
And
Dominic Hasek was the last one, but he was over a decade ago. He was the heart and soul of that team for so many years. You could throw 5 garbage pails out there for Buffalo, and Dominic Hasek would still win a game.
Well, and I want to throw one out there. I mean, look at the St. Louis Blues captain. He lost his love for hockey when playing in Buffalo. Comes to St. Louis, reinvigorates himself, loves the game again. Taylor Hall probably didn't like the situation he was in, but that's partially his fault. Because wait, it's partially his fault because he signed there. He knew what he was getting into. Why sign in Buffalo unless you know there's going to be a culture change? That's my whole question here.
And so here's the answer to your question. He got traded at the deadline last year, near the deadline last year, from Arizona to Buffalo. He looked at the roster and said, okay, this roster has a potential to almost make the playoffs this year. And they almost did before COVID crashed. And, you looked at the idea of Cousins, Jack Eichel, Dahlin, Reinhart, those rookies showed promise. But the thing is, the promise and the potential doesn't equal dividends. And when you have a star player who's playing hurt, who's now gone for this entire season with a neck injury in Jack Eichel, questions remain to be heard, seen, and delivered on, because that culture hasn't changed. As much as you think you are going to be a part of the change of that culture, you're not the young star anymore. You are now going to be brought in as one of the veterans. A lot of money is locked up in Jeff Skinner. A lot of money was locked up in Taylor Hall. And Taylor Hall was certainly the better of the two to attract draft picks and younger talent to help rebuild Buffalo. But there needs to be some sort of, like I said earlier in an earlier show, the identity has to be there. You need to find a grinder or somebody in there that's going to say, look, let's set the tone. Let's get a group of veterans in here. Stahl was supposed to be one of those guys. He's happy he's out of there too. I mean, he got traded a week before the deadline. He was so happy to come to a Canadian team once again. Whether they make the playoffs or not, he's just thankful that he's no longer in Buffalo. And I think a lot of players that got traded at the deadline this year, whether it be from Buffalo, whether it be from, I don't want to say Detroit, but Detroit, Los Angeles, those players are looking for outs, and they got some outs, and they're happy where they are. Jeff Carter in Pittsburgh, watch that trade. I mean, that is going to be a solid lockup in the middle of the ice. Pittsburgh's surprising me big time in that Metro or whatever. Is it the Central they're playing in? Yeah, the Central. And Philly has just dropped out of nowhere because they just they're spineless right now. They are flopping all over. They cannot find themselves. They cannot find their feet. It's like they've been knocked out, ear chewed, belt has been taken away, and they can't find a taxi ride to the hotel.
Yeah.
They're just completely lost.
And this is a team that a year after the Blues won a Stanley Cup, and I'm gonna name drop here, Wags said that they reminded him of the St. Louis Blues of 2019.
They were balanced. They had a great run in the playoffs last year. But that promise and that potential. Claude Giroux is a great leader. He is right there. JVR is right there. You got your star back in Nolan Patrick, who was a second overall pick. Provorov on the background, but two people that have gone completely missing. You find their pictures on a milk carton in the States somewhere.
I think I know where you're going with one of them.
Yeah.
Carter Hart.
Carter Hart gone. I don't know where he went. Someone stole his lunch money. He got locked out of the cafeteria. He's hungry, but he can't find his lunch money. And Shane got his beer. He's gotten nowhere. Healthy scratch, unhealthy scratch, in and out of the lineup. Just inconsistent play. And for a guy that led that defense for a couple of years, Ivan Provorov is trying. Like, he's pleading for can we find Shane? It's like this Western Shane. He's gone and off into the sunset, and he's not coming back. But he's got to find the blue line fast, because I'm sorry to say I don't see Philadelphia making a surge into the playoffs. I think they're going to be out.
I think they'll be out too, and it's sad. Another team that might be out, or as Wag says it, they're gonna back themselves into the playoffs, and that's the St. Louis Blues. The St. Louis Blues right now are in the midst of their toughest stretch of hockey. Playing of course they play their entire division this year. I get it, but playing Colorado, Vegas, and Minnesota. And Colorado, Vegas, Minnesota. Am I missing a team?
Well, you've got Arizona, LA, and St. Louis. They're all playing posse with the Blues. Like, those
Arizona, that's what I was missing.
Are fighting for one position.
Exactly.
And Vegas, and you're not going to touch Vegas and Colorado.
No.
Colorado's a favorite right now at 4-1 to win the Cup, and Vegas is at a 16-2 or a 15-2.
Okay. Let's say the Blues back ass first into the playoffs, okay? And they face Colorado in the first round. Is that system Colorado plays, in your mind, is that sustainable for a 7-game series?
I think so. And I think so because they've got the talent, the speed. They've got great defense. Their defense is rock solid.
Okay.
Makar and Picard. That tandem can suck up 30 minutes a game, no problem.
Okay.
Add Bo and Byram to the mix, even if he throws in 18 minutes. And their goaltending, Grubby's playing phenomenal. He is. And you've got Robin Leonard backing him up, I think, right now, too. So you've got some goaltending in there. Is it Robin Leonard that's backing up Grubby, or is he not?
Leonard is in Vegas.
Vegas? Okay, so Grubby's doing well.
Grubby's doing well, and they picked up somebody. This is an underrated pickup because it's not talked about. The guy who was picked up that no one...
Darcy Kemper.
No. Devin Dubnyk.
Devin Dubnyk. That's the guy, right? I knew it started with a D. Too many trades. Too much going on.
No, Devin Dubnyk, man. This will be a fun Colorado team to watch in the playoffs. I hate to say it. I hope. Who knows? If the Blues back in, I could see that team making a run because of the talent they have. And because we could maybe see Binnington. We've seen flashes of it. Jordan Binnington of 2019, we've seen flashes of. We just haven't seen an extended period yet. And that's not all because of him. So it'll be interesting. The next time the Blues can potentially play, thank you, Colorado, because of COVID, is Thursday against the Avalanche. And I believe the game that was scheduled for tonight has been pushed to Monday, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. So just taking a look around the NHL scoreboard, you have the Boston Bruins beating the Buffalo Sabres 2-0. You have the Battle of New York, the Islanders taking down the Rangers 6-1. You have the New Jersey Devils and Pittsburgh Penguins. Penguins win this one 7-6, so no goaltending in that one. The Carolina Hurricanes and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Carolina wins this one 4-1. You have the Florida Panthers beating the Columbus Blue Jackets 5-1, and 3 games going on right now. Dallas is beating Detroit 4-1. They're about to go on a power play with 17:50 left in the third period. You have the Vancouver Canucks taking down the Toronto Maple Leafs 2-1, taking down with 4:39 left in the second period. That scores a 2-1 there. And you have the Los Angeles Kings eking out a win against the Anaheim Ducks by a final, or not a final. 8:34 left in the first period. I just said live. My bad. Los Angeles Kings are beating the Anaheim Ducks 1-0. That's early in that game, but those two teams seem to play each other well. My question to you is, going to the North Division, is there a chance that Vancouver even makes the playoffs?
No.
Okay. All right. So it sucks because that Vancouver team was getting hot, and at the time of their COVID stoppage. If they didn't have a COVID stoppage, would you think they could make the playoffs?
No, they'd still be behind Calgary.
They'd still be behind Calgary. Man, what happened with Calgary? I'm going to say this before we go to break. Johnny Hockey will be traded this offseason. That's my bold prediction. Your thoughts?
It's a bold statement. He's at the end of his contract.
Well, okay, my bad. He will be elsewhere next year.
That's potential. I think if he's going to go somewhere, he's going to go somewhere back to the United States. What will Calgary get for Johnny Hockey? I don't think they'll get as much. Although they did trade Sam Bennett at the deadline and picked up a tremendous amount of draft picks and some talent there. So maybe they'll do something more with Johnny Hockey out of the lineup. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe. So, Theo, tell everyone what we got coming up here on Crunch Time.
I think up next we're going to chat about your boy in a different uniform, perhaps. Rumorville in the NFL.
Oh, man. There were a lot of rumors today. We'll get to that right after this here on Crunch Time.
Hey Crunch Time fans, my name is Graham Forsyth. I'm the host of Coffee with Graham and the Prospect Show on ASTV Productions. On Coffee with Graham, I talk to athletes, coaches, and whoever else involved in the amateur sports scene in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. And on the Prospect Show, I talk to the best young hockey prospects from around North America. You can catch all the coverage on ASTV Productions. You can catch Coffee with Graham on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. And for the Prospect Show, that show airs every Friday at 8 p.m. Central Time. Hope to see you there. Have a good one.
Welcome back to Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. I was looking at my group chat earlier today with Scott and Wags, and Scott brings up a rumor, and this rumor has Aaron Rodgers being traded to the Denver Broncos. I don't know what to say to this rumor, and basically I will read this to you, but there's a rumor going around, and again, he says rumor, that there's a big draft day trade being talked about, Denver Broncos and Green Bay Packers. And Green Bay would receive a bunch of draft picks and Von Miller for Aaron Rodgers. Your thoughts on that? Because this rumor came out of left field when I heard it at first.
Well, I mean, it's not the first time John Elway's traded for a Pro Bowl quarterback in their later part of their years. The big difference between Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers has a little more left in the tank, if you will. And Von Miller was still considered part of a very integral piece of a defense in Denver. Now, I don't think if you trade Aaron Rodgers to Denver, what are the weapons he's going to have? I mean, you could almost say the weapons are similar. Melvin Gordon in the backfield, maybe a bit of an upgrade on the running back issue.
Over
But there
Aaron
is-
Jones?
Isn't Melvin Gordon in Denver?
Yeah.
So I said Melvin Gordon compared to Aaron Jones. I would take
Yeah.
Gordon over Jones.
Okay.
Gordon's slash dash, he's faster, can do more out of the backfield. But at the same time, Aaron Jones did a great deal for Mr. Rogers because he was bigger, he was stockier, and he did block a little better. Jones is a better blocking running back. I'll give him that. What weapons does Denver have as wideouts? I mean,
Nothing.
That's the thing. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, I think, controls his destiny no matter what. I don't see the support offensively for Aaron Rodgers in Denver unless they're going to draft crazy good in the first couple rounds and give something Rodgers has never had in his career, and that's a first-round draft pick of a wideout or a slot receiver. I feel that the Packers, I mean, they're better suited offensively with Aaron Rodgers as quarterback.
I agree.
And I don't see Jordan Love or whoever they trade in there being inserted right away and seeing this Green Bay Packer team win 50% of their games. I cannot see you have to remember, Green Bay has been so successful without picking weapons offensively in 25 years. I mean, Brett Favre ran that offense with minimal support, minimal first-round draft picks that were considered weapons on the offensive side. The same philosophy ran true for the entire career of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he was supposed to be a number 1 draft pick potential, and he slides all the way to Green Bay at 21 or 24, whatever that spot was. Joe, you'll know it because he's your boy. But think about it in the long run. I mean, as a quarterback, okay, here we're talking draft. Let's talk about the draft, where you will see potentially this weekend 4 quarterbacks taken in the 4 first picks. Outside of independent monetary value and signing bonuses that one Sam Bradford, your Sam Bradford out of St. Louis, destroyed because those contracts can no longer be signed or given. But these first-round draft pick quarterbacks, these first 4, think about it. Jacksonville, 1 win. The New York Jets, garbage. Who else is in the number 3? You've got – I'm going to look at the list. Let me pull up my list here. You've got 3. San Francisco trading up. Okay, they have a bit of promise. Number 4, Atlanta. They've already got a quarterback for 2 or 3 more years. So that could be a scenario where they picked something like Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. Do they pick somebody and put the next up in line learning behind Ryan for a couple years? Perhaps. But when does someone like a tight end like Pitts come from Florida? And think about that. Think about that weaponry for Matt Ryan in his last couple years, a swan song, if you will. You'd have Pitts at the tight, Ridley in the middle, Julio stretching it out. You'd have Gurley in the backfield. Hello, weapons.
What kind of Gurley do you have, though? You know what I mean?
Still have a threat in Gurley. I mean, in case I don't see him being a 1,200-yard runner anymore. But you can still, if he can manage, too bad his knees are all messed up. I mean, I'll be honest with you. That was as much as I love Georgia thoroughbreds in college, Georgia's running backs are all washed up after 4 or 5 years when they hit the NFL.
I agree.
Outside of Nick Chubb, who's the only one that's still running hard, the rest of them that have come out of Georgia in the last decade are all beaten up a little bit. And it's hard to see because, my brother's a big Georgia fan. We love watching the stable out of the backfield. They haven't been great over the last couple of years since Gurley and Chubb left. But they get so many touches as running backs. That Georgia offense runs through the backfield. I don't see Gurley having much more of a success. I think you've got used a lot more in Los Angeles with the Rams to their Super Bowl run, and that was it. I mean, once that happened, he was done. You see that number between 200 and 250 touches per NFL season. Anything more than that over a long period of time, running backs aren't built like they were used to. I mean, we've seen Henry with a tremendous amount of touches in the last 2 or 3 years. He's maybe the unicorn of the group.
He is. He's a, what I say,
Saquon Barkley, for example, he's only played 3 years, parts of 3 seasons. He's been injured for predominantly 2 of those 3 seasons, and he wants to come back. Well, here's a specimen out of the backfield who had a tremendous rookie year. And you only hope that the OCs and the head coaches of the Giants figure out a way to use Saquon Barkley and reserve him so that he can play a full season in different ways. That's the only saving grace to the New York Football Giants, is keeping Saquon Barkley healthy. Because that offense still will run through him. He's just not going to run through people like he used to.
Yeah, but we talk about the New York Giants. Is Daniel Jones the right guy in New York?
Well, their owner thinks so because he's saying all the right things. But from a media perspective, of course you got to say all the right things because you're paying the man a healthy thumb.
What about you? What about you? What do you feel?
You know what?
Is he right for that Giants team?
I think he is right now. I mean, look at the Giants right now, okay? Where are they sitting at? They are sitting at – I'm looking at my order. I'm not even seeing the New York Giants in the top 10 picks. They're number 11. So when they're at number 11, 4 quarterbacks are probably going to be gone off the board. They're not going to move up to pick up one of these 4. So get Daniel Jones a weapon. Get him an offensive lineman. Get some protection or get someone down the field. That's the plan for the Giants. Don't sway away from that. Those 11 to 15 picks are always interesting because you have to think one of 2 things. And correct me if I'm wrong, Joe. But what you got to do is you got to think to yourself, okay, what is the best player on the board? Do we take him? Or are we trying to find someone and insert a lineman on the offensive or defensive side?
Well, I say it's a combination of both because if your needs happen to stack up with the next best thing available, then yes, but you need to be shopping for needs more than the best available player on the market. I mean, what do we fantasy guys talk about all the time? You know, you don't always go for the best player available. You don't. I mean, if you keep doing that, then you're gonna struggle.
Yeah, I mean Daniel Jones, I don't know his sack ratios, there's touchdown interception ratio, but it's not great.
No.
But protection always helps. At the same time, if you've got a receiver that can go in and out fast within the first 3 seconds, chances are Daniel Jones will release that ball quick. You know, it's not one of those things that he's not immobile like a Big Ben. He certainly isn't a mobile like Mahomes, but he does have an arm. Can he throw the ball accurately? Hopefully he can find and regain that opportunity. That's been his issue, but that's because defenses aren't giving him time. His offensive line can't hold up. So there is the need, that backside protection, definite need. And that's not just the Giants that need that need. I mean, there's 3 or 4 teams that could use that pivotal piece. I mean, the Cleveland Browns could solidify their offense by putting in one more offensive lineman. Patrick Mahomes, who's going to lose both guards, who lost both guards this offseason, could use someone that they may find at the end of the first round to potentially plug and play this first year as a rookie. I mean, it's a rare year where we're seeing the talent pool of receivers, quarterbacks, cornerbacks, tight ends. We're not hearing the big names outside of Sewell out of Oregon, who even skipped all of last year, being mentioned as these defensive, offensive tackle positions. So this middle picks in the first round, I think there's going to be a slew of big boys, buffet eaters that are going to get taken off the board, I think, more so than the talent positions we see on the wides.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Now, you talked about the Giants. Let's go to the Jets because they just traded Sam Darnold to the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers traded down in the draft. What the hell are they doing?
I think it's because they realized they would rather, they traded down, but didn't they get a couple extra picks too? So not this year, but the thing is they're looking at it from the standpoint of a potential rebuild with Sam Darnold as their number one. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year. And I think having Teddy Bridge, who still could potentially be a trade piece, I think, come the deadline this weekend. I mean, don't think that they may not trade Teddy Bridgewater, knowing that Sam Darnold could be their number one even this year. If they get the right picks or they get the right opportunity to get a potential, I don't think they'll get a first rounder for Teddy Bridgewater, but maybe they get a second and a third, and there's some other names that are on the board that can protect Sam Darnold. That could happen. I mean, as much as we talked earlier about Aaron Rodgers and Von Miller and a couple of things swinging back and forth between the Broncos and the Packers, Carolina's in a weird position because Teddy Bridgewater is there and Sam Bradford is backing him up. It'd be interesting to see whether or not Teddy Bridgewater would go back to New Orleans. I don't know.
I don't know either. That will be interesting. And what is the draft in 9 days?
The draft is coming up quick. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a fun draft to watch. That's for sure. Coming up on Crunch Time, though, we will be diving into the NBA a little bit and talking about this soccer situation. So we'll be talking about that right after this here on Crunch Time. Welcome back to Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. Joe alongside Theo. And man, just as we think it's going to be an easy in for the New Jersey Nets, James Harden is now.
I mean, the Brooklyn Nets.
The Brooklyn Nets. I don't understand the move from New Jersey to Brooklyn, but that's just me. But the Brooklyn Nets lose a big piece in James Harden. How does this affect them moving forward? And has that Eastern Conference gotten a little easier to crack for some of these teams?
That dynamic in Brooklyn is so Jekyll, Hyde, Waldorf, Stadler, bunch of Muppets, the get-along gang that's not getting along. So many moving parts, so many identities, so many, fragments that have never played cohesive ball. I think, 4 games that all 3 of them have played all together. All 4 of them have played together, not 0. Aldridge is now retired. Harden is gone. KD is now, injured again with a contusion to his leg. Kyrie continues to take personal days. Mike D'Antoni and Rick and Steve Nash are wondering, who's playing for me? When are they playing for me? How are they playing for me? Blake Griffin, I think, is the only one playing in the lineup. Kyrie's there now too. But come playoff time, there is no chemistry or cohesion to this team. Whether or not they're going to be all together, I don't know. But people consider them still the favorite out of the East.
I don't know if you can do that still.
Well, Giannis has problems. He's got one major flaw. He continues to foul early in a game and foul late in a game, not being able to control his emotions and play decent defense. Tremendous score, goes to the hole. He is a freak, no doubt about it. 2-time MVP back-to-back. He potentially could win a third one this year, considering Every single other MVP candidate has been injured this year, which is remarkable. That is such an interesting stat. When you look at it's like almost having the EA Sports cover jinx on you, but it's involving every time you mention a new player for an NBA MVP, they go down with an injury. It's remarkable. But I mean, Miami's starting to heat up, playing great ball. Philadelphia 76ers, they've got 3 great pieces. Do they have a 4th? We don't know. Playoffs haven't started yet. Those are the only other 2 teams I really see, 3-team story really making a run against Brooklyn. Milwaukee, Miami, and Philadelphia. As much as I'd love to see the Knicks do something, they're not as powerful yet. They're not ready yet.
Well, and they're in the right direction.
And they get some experience.
They're headed in the right direction, though. That's what
Absolutely.
you want to see out of it. And we haven't said that about the Knicks in how long?
11 years.
Yeah. They haven't been relevant in a relevant market like New York in 11 years. What does that say? James Dolan,
has got something going.
James Dolan, you need to get the hell out of Dodge.
They're spending the right money in the right places. They've drafted well. I mean, Obi Toppin, doing good things. Jules Randle doing good things, leading that club the way he's supposed to. And the Canadian guy that's slipping my mind, even though he shouldn't slip my mind, from Duke, third overall pick, RJ Barrett. You know, he's a really good player, solid up and down 2-way player. And that's what New York needed. I mean, they needed some solid players that are going to start from the ground up and work their way through the system and gain some valuable experience. I mean, this will be an experience if they make the top 8, top 10. I'd like them to finish above 6. And here's why. I don't want them to play in that 2-game playoff challenge.
I want them
to get right into the playoffs. I want them to be exposed to true playoff basketball. None of this mammy-jammy, make this rule up so we get 10 teams in there. Garbage. You know, I agree with Mark Cuban. I think it's absolutely asinine that if you finish 7th, you have to then play the 8th place team in a 2-game series, and then potentially you lose out after playing 2 games.
Well, okay. Didn't Mark Cuban, wasn't he the one that orchestrated this? Wasn't he the one that was in favor of this? And now he's going to – no. Wags and I were talking about this last night. It seemed like Cuban was on board with this, and now he's denouncing it. Like,
it's different when a 7 plays an 8 and a 9 plays a 10. If a 7 and a 10 played and the 8 and 9 played, that's a whole different scenario. If you fought all season to finish 7th, and then you have to play the 8th place team who would have already been in the playoffs already, and then you potentially lose in a 2-game series, when a 9 and a 10 play a series as well, it shouldn't be done like that. It should be reseeded where 7-10 versus 8 and 9. That's the way it should be done.
Do you like this? Do you like the extension, basically?
I mean, what do I say? I think it's gimmicky. But the thing is, for owners, TV, whatever shortened season it's been, whatever. I mean, I thought a 3-on-3 shootout was gimmicky for the NHL. Look at where it is now. It's the most exciting part of hockey. People want hockey to finish with a 3-on-3 5-minute time. They don't want to see shootouts. Shootouts are the worst way to decide a hockey game, as far as I'm concerned, no matter what. I will challenge you to that debate. I will win. No questions asked.
Hey,
people want to see the 3-on-3 extended to 10 minutes so you don't see a shootout. I would rather see that. I would get rid of a shootout ever since whatever year it was, 92 or 93, where Peter Forsberg is potentially skating backwards in a World Junior Hockey Championship, and he's skating backwards and does his little fancy one-handed move, and human error calls it a goal instead of a no goal. Done. Like in international hockey, fine. When you're getting paid, players get paid to play. Make them play.
Yeah, get Do whatever you can to get paid. I get it, but I don't know. I don't like. I remember going to hockey games and it would end in a tie. Don't ever let hockey games end in a tie ever again. That's just my thing. Well, yeah, and Lester seems to agree with you here. He goes, "I agree with you, Theo. Play hockey for the win," and I like that. I like that. Now I want to get to this. I guess your European League Super League. I guess that's trying to be formed, and now it's not being formed. 5 teams announced that they are removing themselves from it after originally adding themselves to it. Go ahead with this, Theo, because when I read this, why start a super league? That just makes no sense.
Well, look who's joining. Look who potentially joined this Super League. Okay, I'm going to list off the 12 teams because I have them in front of me here. 6 English clubs: Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Man United, and Tottenham. The 6 more expensive, more affluent, more healthy clubs out of the English league. Then you've got the Spanish sides: Atletico Madrid, Real, Barcelona, and the Italian clubs: AC Milan, Juventus, and Inter. Again, 6 clubs outside of the 6 European clubs that are the most affluent, most expensive clubs, and truly large traditions. Now, clubs that aren't mentioned: 0 from German Bundesliga. Paris Saint-Germain is left out of this. Massive holes. Now, 5 teams have pulled out: 2 from the 2 from the English Premier League, 3 from the other respective leagues. Does that leave room for Bundesliga and PSG to join? I don't know. But the bottom line is this is a cash grabber, money maker when you cannot have maximum fans in the stands. If there was fans, number one, this would be an outrage. The reason why, I think, this is my conspiracy theory, if you will, Joe, give me 20 seconds, that these teams are going to be potentially dropping out is FIFA has come out and made the ultimate decider. They have come out with a quote, or I'm going to paraphrase it, simply saying if you decide to play in this Super League as a player, you have to forego and forfeit your chance to play for country. Well, who holds the ultimate goal here? The players or the professional teams? Not the country teams, the professional teams, the 12 teams that mentioned now.
The professional teams.
We're talking about the professional teams and the professional leagues that say we want to be a part of this Super League, which I might add, 3 of those teams are owned predominantly by American owners, not European owners, not Brazilian owners, global owners, American owners. And they are wanting to create this because they feel they can. Simply put, they want to have these games on television. Oh, let's get some television rights because we can't have fans. Soccer is a global sport. Let's profoundly put this game on a spectacle, and let's allow as many players to be seen all over the world, not international TV, spotlighted at glorious times. We're not talking about Saturday and Sunday afternoons here in the United States and Canada to watch EPL action or Serie A action. We're talking highlight, mainstream. Oh, look, Sportsnet's got hockey on at 6 o'clock, 2 Canadian teams, or I can watch Man United play Atletico Madrid at the same time on DAZN or whoever, right? Prime time spots for these teams.
I get it.
So it's all about money. It's all about having no fans, and it simply is getting television rights and monies and funds that have been lost during this pandemic.
All right. Well, I also read that they don't like how the system works in these leagues, period. How do these systems work? Like, how are these leagues being run? Because apparently they don't like how these leagues are being run to begin with. That's why they're trying to start their new league. You've heard that before, right? You've read that.
The same thing's happening here with junior hockey in Canada, which we won't touch on. But when you think about how, the cream of the crop is carrying a majority of the talent, the play, the decision making, and they're bringing along with them baby brother who's wearing hand-me-downs or is not looking as clean as the top teams. Maybe they're getting sick and tired of having to bring everybody along with them. And I say it in that way because if you consider the 6 teams in the English Premier League that have been mentioned, usually those 6 teams are at the top, if not near the top, every single year. They are perennial winning clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Great stars, lots of money, and what have you. Let's not forget that these professional leagues have one thing missing that the big 4 sports have here in North America: salary caps. You can pay, transfer, send as much money as you want. It's a bidding war for top talent in these leagues, and they get transfer fees through the wazoo. They get transfer fees that some kings and queens in Abu Dhabi and Dubai would be like shaking their heads saying, man, that's a lot of money. But having that said, they're probably paying for these players to go play there because they own the teams too. Nonetheless, this is simply a way for the big cows to flex their muscles and show that if they really want to separate themselves, they can. But the massive underlying comment, and I'll say it again, is if these players decide to go play in this European Super League, they forego their chance to play for country. And to a lot of those players playing in a Euro World Cup, playing in a Euro Cup or a World Cup or a FIFA sanctioned event means a lot more to them as well versus playing in a World Hockey Championship or the Olympics for hockey.
I would have to agree on that. Well, Theo, it's been a great show. Thanks for hopping on tonight. I'm sure we'll do this again very, very soon. For those watching at home, thank you so much. For Theo, I'm Joe. Do the right things out there and have a great night, everyone.